Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about a couple of things in this video. I'm going to start off with Syria. Israel carried out one of the biggest strikes on Syria in about 10 years. They carried out airstrikes on Tartus, Hama, and Damascus. One of them was on a research academy that Israel targeted previously, but we saw many attacks, not just one, and over 18 people were martyred and dozens were wounded. We didn't hear that many people died, of course, because to mainstream media in general, their lives are less important. So whenever an Israeli or two die, they will of course plaster everything on mainstream media. But if Syrians die, if the people in Gaza die every single day, like 100 or 200 times, that's not a big problem for mainstream media. So I just wanted to elaborate that because you most likely didn't hear that. 18 people, innocent, as reports are saying from Syria, have been killed. No condemnation, no statements internationally, no nothing. This is because they want people to perceive these attacks as something very normal, as like a happening, something happening, right? No outrage, no condemnation, no nothing. Israel has been doing that for years, under any pretext under the sun. Mostly they will tell you we are targeting bases that have Iranian officials in them, that are linked with the government and supporting Hezbollah and doing this and planning against Israel, sometimes to do with chemical weapons and what have you. However, the fact of the matter is, they are attacking a sovereign nation. Imagine it was the opposite. Syria regularly targets Israel and its bases and its research institutions, or would you have had this level of reaction from countries across the world? You wouldn't. But they do that deliberately to show it as if it's normal. It's normal for Israel to attack, and they have been doing that for a very long time. This is part of the bigger plan to make the lives of the people in these locations perceived to be or seem to be less valuable than other lives. Now, we're having this escalation simultaneously with talks from Israel that they are preparing for an all-out war in Lebanon. We had lots of attacks in Israel. We've had lots of attacks in Lebanon. There was a particular attack during which a UAV belonging to Hezbollah landed on a civilian building in Nahariya. Israel might use this as an excuse to escalate further. Because don't forget, the biggest escalation came after the false flag attack on Majd al-Shams, where innocent children were killed. An Israeli operation. Now they want to escalate further, and these increased attacks in Syria are to indicate that they are looking for something bigger in Lebanon, because to them the attacks in Syria are attacking everything that's related to Hezbollah, their missiles, their supply chain, the technology, the expertise coming from Syria itself and from Iran as well to Hezbollah, and Israel wants to deal with that. They want to deal with that, but they wouldn't want it to escalate to a level where you would have a complete all-out war with all the tools being broken. They still want it to appear as if it's an attack that can be contained, or that Hezbollah could potentially respond to in one big response at a certain location, a certain sensitive location in Israel, similar to what they've done previously, and ended there. But Israel is escalating. They want to escalate further because they want a bigger war with Lebanon. Gaza is still not sorted. They still committed genocide and crimes against humanity and barbarism and an infanticide in Gaza. Every single day we have dozens of people being martyred. In the last 24 hours we had over 80 people killed. People are still suffering. And Benjamin Netanyahu is making it impossible to reach a deal. The Americans are seeming less and less hopeful that they can achieve something or provide us with a proposal, provide the people with a proposal that can be accepted by both sides, especially and primarily because of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government. This is the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Israel is clearly escalating, and we're having statements from the military and political leadership concerning Lebanon. That we're looking to shift focus on Lebanon. The argument previously was get Gaza over and done with to go to Lebanon, but seeing as the government is not planning to end it with Gaza, and they of course ignored many previous advice that they were given from the people in the military establishment in Israel, previous senior figures who told them you need to end Gaza before you go on an all-out war in Lebanon. But Benjamin Netanyahu proves time after time that he does not listen to people who have expertise, even in Israel and even in bodies that are supposed to be very close to the position of the Israeli Prime Minister. In many cases in Israel and in other countries as well, the senior figures that held top figures in the establishment, they continue to have a relationship with serving leaders of the country or serving heads of each organization respectively, depending on which field they were in. But Netanyahu has been ignoring all of these people. And to him, it's looking like he wants to normalize what's happening in Gaza and continue on a war in Lebanon that could potentially, of course, escalate and explode to an all-out war, although Hezbollah don't want that. Hezbollah doesn't want to have an all-out war, and there's quite a big argument that Israel doesn't also, but when you're talking about Israel, you're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, and Benjamin Netanyahu and his government are very reckless. They are constantly escalating, but there is a lot of pressure coming from the military primarily as a result of these reckless actions coming from the Israeli government, because the levels of resignations that we're seeing from the Israeli army are unprecedented. So they're having this plan with Lebanon, and things are heating up slowly but surely. In the meantime, Israel was depending heavily on the aid that they're getting, well, not aid, but supply and goods coming from Jordan, as a balance between what's happening against it in the Red Sea and the embargo implemented on Israel from Ansarullah, and of course the BDS movement globally, many people boycotting Israel, boycotting any company linked to Israel, but Israel was mostly concerned about the trade with it, so goods coming to Israel. Ansarullah in Yemen made a big impact on the Israeli economy. They reduced the trading levels in the port of Eilat to less than 10%, so you're talking about over 90% damage. They declared bankruptcy. Of course, they were downgraded by Moody's, and they had a negative projection. Israel's National Bank is digging into the reserves for the first time in history, and there are many unprecedented things happening, of course, including the levels of people who are displaced in Israel. Internally, approximately 250,000, and many industries shut down because you need a lot of people to serve in the army, and Netanyahu is extending the forced, compulsory serving in the army, the conscription, because he is unable to bring new people to fight for him in this genocide, let alone the Israelis who are leaving. So with all of this economic devastation, with all of these economic problems, with all of the businesses internally unable to operate properly, with many countries abroad not dealing with Israel, and with the embargo, Israel still had to bring in goods. They need to continue running. They need to run the country, and people need basic stuff. Jordan provided the answer. Jordan and some other countries too, they provide the answer, but I'm talking about Jordan primarily because of the long border Israel has with Jordan and the crossings that they have. 4 crossings with Jordan that transport goods, and many people in Jordan were protesting, like, how are we sending them goods when they are blocking aid and medicine and killing infants in Gaza. That led to the action of Maher al-Jazi yesterday when he killed 3 Israeli security officers on one of the crossings. That led Israel to shut down all crossings, apart from very limited times for the transport of people only. Goods are not going back nor forth. And you're talking about a big problem, because so far they had attacks, mostly from the Red Sea, but also stretching to the Mediterranean and even up to the Indian Ocean and the Arab Sea. Jordan was a safe haven. Now you're having this problem. Israel is thinking, okay, well, this man had this operation, he killed 3 people. Of course, the Jordanian king did not endorse this action. He said that, no, we shouldn't do this. But the man in Jordan is viewed as a hero. Many people are praising him for what he's done. And that could encourage other people to do such actions. Now imagine what a single thing is doing to Israel now, especially with the fact that they were relying so much on Jordan. Where are they going to get the other goods from? Eilat, it's almost impossible. The Haifa port, of course, the ports, Haifa port and the Sdot port, they can still get a couple of things, but not to the levels that are required. That's why they had this alternative. It wasn't sufficient enough, but it was an alternative. So they need to find a quick solution when it comes to Jordan. The problem with that is Israel is escalating in the West Bank, and they're having talks about going to the same levels of Gaza in the West Bank. Yoav Gallant just said, we are mowing the lawn in the West Bank, and we need to take some things from the roots. But we've had genocidal statements coming from Israelis when it comes to the West Bank. Turn Jenin into Gaza, turn Tul Karam into Gaza. That's Smotrich and other figures as well in the Israeli government. That doesn't help matters between them and Jordan. Why? Because Jordan views any escalation coming from the West Bank as a direct threat against it. Like Egypt is viewing the escalation in Gaza, Jordan is viewing the escalation in the West Bank as a massive threat. As a matter of fact, the Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi said that any attempt to forcibly expel the Palestinians in the West Bank would be a declaration of war. That's something that doesn't come easily from the lips of figures in Jordan. Jordan usually is restricted to diplomatic tone, talk about peace, talk about just ending the war. But he said that a long time ago. And despite that, Israel is still continuing with the escalation, with the provocations in Al-Aqsa Mosque, of course, declarations that they want to build another temple, and now with this operation in the West Bank. They're going to have to find a solution very quickly with the Jordanian government to counter this problem, but judging by how much they're escalating and how far they're going with their crimes, it doesn't look like they're going to succeed very quickly with that.